ByteDance just quietly dropped something that the entire AI developer world stopped and stared at. And honestly, nobody saw this one coming. We're talking about DeerFlow 2.0, a fully open source super agent system that can plan out complex tasks, split them into smaller jobs running at the same time, remember everything across sessions, and run real code inside its own sandboxed computer. It hit number 1 on GitHub Trending on 28th of Feb 2026, and people are already calling it the first open source agent platform that actually works in the real world instead of just looking good in a demo. And the crazy part is that this came from ByteDance, the TikTok company, not from OpenAI, not from Google, not from Anthropic. So let's talk about it. Here's the thing about DeerFlow 2.0. It is a complete ground-up rewrite. It shares zero code with version 1. ByteDance basically threw out the entire old code base and rebuilt it from scratch with one specific goal in mind: giving AI agents a real body to work in, not just a brain to think with. And once you understand that difference, everything else about this release starts to make a lot more sense. The original DearFlow started as a deep research tool, something developers could use to automate long research tasks. But the community took it way further than that. Developers started using it to build data pipelines, generate full slide decks, spin up dashboards, and automate entire content workflows. Things ByteDance never planned for in version 1, and that told the team something important. People were not just looking for a research tool. They needed a full runtime system, a place where an agent could live, work, and get real things done. So they rebuilt it from scratch on LangGraph and LangChain, turning it from a deep research tool into a long horizon super agent harness with planning, long-term memory, a file system, and skills. They call it a super agent harness, and that name is actually pretty accurate once you dig into what it does. Now, here is where it gets interesting. The number one problem with every other agent framework out there right now, whether that's QAI, AutoGPT, or AutoGen, is that they are frameworks you wear together yourself. You connect the pieces, you set up the environment, you figure out how memory works, and you hope it holds together when things get messy. Most of them break the second you try to run a real workload. DeerFlow 2.0 sits completely different. It is no longer a framework you wear together. It is a super agent harness. Batteries included, fully extensible. It sits with everything an agent needs out of the box: a file system, memory, skills, sandboxed execution, and the ability to plan and spawn sub-agents for complex multi-step tasks. ByteDance positioned this thing as LangGraph plus batteries, and that description fits perfectly. The first big piece to understand is the sandbox. When you give DeerFlow 2.0 a task, it does not just talk about doing the work, it runs each task inside an isolated Docker container, making sure everything stays safe and under control. The agent gets its own private folders, one for uploads, one for its working space, and one for final output. It reads files, edits them, writes new ones, runs code, views images, and produces real results. And critically, everything is locked inside that container. Nothing bleeds into your production systems. Zero contamination between sessions. This is the piece that most other frameworks completely ignore. And it is the difference between a chatbot that has tool access versus an agent that actually has a working environment. The second piece is how it handles big tasks. Complex work almost never fits into a single run. DeerFlow solves this with sub-agent spawning. The main agent can dramatically create sub-agents to handle complex tasks in parallel. There is a lead agent at the top that receives your goal and then breaks it into smaller pieces. It creates multiple focused sub-agents on the fly, each one working on a different part of the job in its own separate context. They run at the same time when possible, and once they finish, they send their results back to the lead agent, which puts everything together into one final output. And here is a technical detail that almost nobody talked about when this launched. According to the actual source code, the system enforces a hard limit of exactly 3 concurrent sub-agents running at the same time, each with a 15-minute timeout. So if you ask DeerFlow to research a topic and produce a full report with slides and a website, It fans out across those parallel workers and converges back into a finished package. One harness, many hands. The third piece that people have been really excited about is the skills system. Skills in DearFlow are not hard-coded features. A standard agent skill is a structured capability module, which is a markdown file that defines a workflow, best practices, and references to supporting tools and resources. DearFlow sits with built-in skills for research, report writing, slide creation, web pages, image generation, and video generation. But the real power is extensibility. You add your own skills by placing custom markdown files into the skills directory, and the agent reads them and follows the workflow you define. Because the format is just a markdown file, anyone can write one without deep coding knowledge. Skills are also loaded progressively, meaning only when a task actually needs them, not all at once. This keeps the model's memory lean and makes DearFlow work well even with models that have smaller context windows. The community has already started building and sharing skill packs for all kinds of tasks beyond what ByteDance ships by default. And then there is the memory. This is a detail a lot of early coverage completely missed. DearFlow includes long-term memory across sessions that remembers your preferences and work habits. Most agent systems are completely blank every time you start a new run. The agent has no memory of any previous work. DearFlow's persistent memory layer changes that. The agent can carry knowledge, context, and results from one session into the next, which makes it way more useful for ongoing projects. There is also a private knowledge base layer that plugs into tools like Rackflow, QRunt, Milverse, and VikingDB, so teams can feed DearFlow their own internal documents and have the agent reason over private data without it ever leaving their systems. The tool layer is also worth calling out because it is fully fixable. The core toolset includes web search, web fetch, file operations, and bash execution, but you can plug in any external tool using MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. DearFlow also supports OAuth for connecting to external services securely, meaning you can hook up Slack, Notion, Google Drive, or basically any app that has an API and have DearFlow work across all of them in a single task. And here is a detail that flew under the radar. DearFlow has integrated InfoQuest, an intelligent search and crawling toolset independently built by BytePlus, which gives it a live search and web crawling layer built right into the platform. The search options do not stop there either. DearFlow also supports Tavily, Brave Search, DuckDuckGo, and even RC for specific papers, all switchable from a single config file. What also surprised people is how model agnostic the whole thing is. You can run DearFlow with GPT-4, Claude, Gemini, DeepSeek, or any open source model you point it at. The architecture stays the same regardless of which AI model is doing the thinking. And in early tests, people found that swapping out the underlying model barely changes how the harness behaves because the structure, the sandboxing, and the memory system do most of the heavy lifting. The model is just the reasoning layer sitting on top. Now, in fairness, it is not perfect. DearFlow is infrastructure, not a turnkey product. You still need to design your agent logic, pick your models, and structure your goals clearly. That hard limit of 3 concurrent sub-agents means very large parallel workloads will hit a ceiling, and tasks with more than 15 minutes of execution time per sub-agent will time out. Some security reviewers have also flagged a real concern because it runs external code and pulls from the web. Any deployment needs to be fully containerized with locked down promises. There is also an ongoing conversation about ByteDance ownership of the project, which will trigger extra review in regulated industries like finance, healthcare, and government. The MIT license means the community can fork and audit every single line of code, but it is worth thinking through before anyone drops this into a production environment without doing that review first. That is where we will wrap it up. The real question now is whether the open source path actually wins this agent architecture war, or whether the closed platforms from OpenAI and Microsoft end up pulling ahead once enterprise deals start to lock in. Drop your thoughts below, make sure you are subscribed, hit the like button, and I will see you in the next one.